Picture this. It's 6:15 on a Tuesday morning, the kind of quiet that feels heavy, like a warm blanket. Just the sound of the mist rolling off the water and the steam curling up from my ceramic mug, peaceful as a church on a Monday. And then, wham, blue and red lights are flashing against the trees, sirens screaming up my gravel driveway like a bat out of hell, shattering the only peace I've got left. My first thought wasn't anger, it was panic, thinking maybe my heart finally gave out or there was a wreck on the main road. But no, I step off my porch and see a police cruiser followed by a pristine white Mercedes G-Wagon, and stepping out of that tank is Brenda Vance, the self-appointed queen of the Pine Ridge Estates Association, pointing a manicured finger at me like I'm a criminal in my own front yard, screaming to the officer that I was defacing community wetlands by fixing a loose board on my own dock. Here's the thing you have to understand about Brenda and her little army of clipboard warriors. They truly believe that because they bought a house next to a lake, they own the lake, but they didn't know the history, didn't know that my grandfather, Silas Thorne, bought this land back in 1962 when it was nothing but swamp and potential, paying cash and sweating blood to clear the shoreline, stock the base, and hand-carve the very dock posts Brenda was currently vibrating with rage over. I'm Caleb Thorne, 52, a retired electrician who just wanted to fish. But by the time this war was over, Brenda and her precious HOA wouldn't just be apologizing. They'd be writing me checks every single month for the privilege of looking at water they never actually owned. It started slow, like a leak in a roof you don't notice until the floor is rotten, back when the developers found our slice of heaven in 2018 and threw up these massive, soulless McMansions on the Western Ridge, bringing in people who wanted the rustic aesthetic without the rustic reality. People who formed an HOA before the paint was even dry because they desperately needed to control something. Brenda was their leader, a real estate agent with hairspray-hardened blonde armor and eyes that were constantly appraising the net worth of everything they landed on. The type of woman who would smile and say, "Bless your heart," while stabbing you in the chest with a salad fork. The first shot was fired on a Tuesday. I was down at the water prepping my old aluminum rowboat. Nothing fancy, just a vessel that had seen more sunrises than Brenda had seen facials. When I heard the click-clack of heels on weathered wood, a sound that has no business being on a fishing dock. "Excuse me," she chirped, a sound like glass breaking. "You need to remove that unauthorized watercraft immediately." And I turned, coffee still in hand, watching the steam mix with the morning fog, thinking surely this was a joke. But she opened this leather-bound binder like it was the Holy Scripture, reading section 4.7 about architectural harmony and approved aesthetic standards, pointing at my grandpa's boat like it was a pile of burning trash. I tried to be polite. I really did, taking a breath that smelled of old cedar and damp earth, telling her, "Brenda, I appreciate the concern, but I'm not in Pine Ridge Estates, never signed a paper, never paid a dime. This land is older than your subdivision's blueprints." But her smile just got tighter, that terrifying predatory grin, and she said, "Everyone follows the rules, Caleb. We maintain standards for the entire lake ecosystem." Which is when I told her to get off my property, and she clicked away, leaving angry little divots in my driveway, and promising that "we'll see about that." A threat that hung in the humid air long after her perfume dissipated. 2 weeks later, I come home from a supply run, truck loaded with lumber and groceries, only to find my driveway blocked by a wall of luxury SUVs, 4 of them parked bumper to bumper across my entrance like a blockade. And I can hear voices drifting from Brenda's patio next door, a community safety meeting, she called it. I walked over, leaving my ice cream to melt in the truck, the humidity sticking my shirt to my back, and found Brenda holding court at a folding table, looking up with this feigned innocence that would make a saint punch a wall, saying, "Oh, Caleb, so sorry." This was the only time everyone could meet to discuss safety protocols, a classic power move, trying to show me that her convenience outweighed my access to my own home. But that night, listening to the crickets and feeling the heat of anger radiating off my skin, I decided that if they wanted to play games with rules and bylaws, I needed to learn the game better than them. So I went down to the basement, digging through musty cardboard boxes that smelled of dust and time, sifting through Grandpa Silas's old papers, expecting nothing but tax returns. But then I found a survey map from '62 that made my heart hammer against my ribs. The property lines didn't stop at the water's edge. My deed included 50 feet into the lake, a detail my grandfather had secured because he hated the idea of anyone telling him where he could cast a line, meaning the HOA had been technically trespassing every time their fancy boats cut too close to my shore. I didn't shout, didn't call them out yet. I just went to the hardware store and bought high-definition security cameras, mounting them along the tree line, and within 6 hours I caught 3 board members, including Brenda, walking along my shoreline with measuring tapes, taking photos, trespassing on land that was legally mine to build a case against me, digging their own graves one step at a time. I put up private property signs, bright yellow and impossible to miss, the sound of my hammer echoing across the water like a warning shot, and Brenda's reaction was to call the county sheriff, claiming I was inciting community tension, but the deputy, a tired man who clearly hated homeowner disputes, looked at my deed, looked at Brenda, and told her to grow up, which meant she had run out of official channels and was about to get creative. The escalation was swift. Suddenly, her white G-Wagon was cruising past my house 4 times a day, slowing down so she could snap photos. And then came the naval blockade. Saturday morning, 6:30 a.m., the sacred hour of fishing. I hear the roar of engines, not 1 but 5 boats, pristine fiberglass hulls flying Little Pine Ridge flags, circling my dock in a synchronized formation like a budget Coast Guard, with Brenda in the lead boat holding a megaphone, announcing to the birds and the fish that they were the Waterway Safety Patrol, ensuring compliance with community standards. It was absurd, watching these grown adults in captain's hats circling a guy in a rowboat, rocking my dock with their wake, drowning out the nature I loved. But as I watched them, a memory surfaced from those old files, a mention of no-wake zones and navigation laws. So while they played Navy, I went inside and filled out a petition to the Department of Natural Resources requesting a protected zone around my historic structure, a move that would legally force them to crawl at idle speed past my house. But the real turning point, the moment the universe decided to hand me a loaded gun, was a call from Sarah Jenkins, a maritime lawyer in town who had heard the gossip at the diner and asked to buy me a coffee. Meeting Sarah Jenkins was like watching a shark glide through calm water. She was sharp, focused, and smelled blood in the water. We sat in a vinyl booth at Harry's Diner, the air thick with the smell of bacon and gossip, and she dropped a bombshell that made my jaw hit the table. HOA insurance policies almost never cover maritime activities because the liability is astronomical. She explained that every time Brenda led her little safety patrol out there to harass me, she was exposing every single board member to personal financial ruin if there was even a minor accident, meaning they were betting their houses on the chance to annoy me. Sarah told me to let them keep digging, to gather more evidence. So I sat back and let the cameras roll, capturing every unsafe maneuver, every megaphone blast, every instance of harassment, while Brenda, sensing she was losing grip, took the war to the streets. Suddenly, I was a pariah in the town I grew up in. At the hardware store, conversations would die when I walked in, and the cashier at the gas station wouldn't look me in the eye because Brenda had been spreading rumors that I was a dangerous recluse, an anti-community threat, who hated families and safety, a narrative she pushed with a petition table outside the grocery store, collecting signatures to save our lake from me. But arrogance makes people sloppy, and on a Thursday, Brenda made a fatal error. She called the Department of Environmental Protection on me. A state truck pulled up, expecting to find an illegal industrial pier, but Officer Daniels, a no-nonsense guy with mud on his boots, inspected my grandfather's wood and stone dock and actually smiled, calling it a model of sustainable shoreline management, because wood breathes while concrete kills the ecosystem. Then he looked across the water at the Pine Ridge boat launch, a massive slab of unpermitted concrete Brenda had authorized, and his smile vanished. He pulled out his tablet and noted that the HOA had 0 permits for their ramps and owed thousands in environmental fines, turning Brenda's weapon right back into her face. Emboldened, I decided to expand my dock, not to be petty, but to be perfect, filing every permit, getting structural engineering plans, doing it so by the book it was painful, just to show them what legal construction looked like. Brenda lost her mind, launching a Facebook page called The Truth About Lake Whispering Pines, posting photos of my tool shed cropped to look like a hazardous waste site, manipulating images to make my property look like a junkyard, riling up the new neighbors who didn't know any better. But I wasn't alone anymore. Bob and Linda Harrison, a retired military couple living on the South Shore just outside the HOA's clause, reached out with their own binder of evidence, showing me how Brenda had tried to bully them about their garden shed, stepping onto their land with tape measures. Then came Mike Kowalski, the owner of the local marina, who was laughing his head off because Brenda had been telling residents they could use his private boat ramp for free as part of their HOA dues, leaving him with unpaid invoices and unauthorized usage, meaning Brenda was writing checks with her mouth that the HOA's bank account couldn't cash. The pressure was building, the town was divided, and Brenda was planning a massive emergency town hall to finally crush me. But then, the miracle happened. I received a manila envelope in the mail from the son of my grandfather's old lawyer, who was digitizing records and found something he thought I should see. My hands trembled as I pulled out a yellowed, brittle document dated October 1962, the original developer's agreement between Grandpa Silas and the county. I sat on my porch, reading the legalese 3 times before the reality hit me like a bolt of lightning. Section 12, Paragraph 3. The original developer, Silas Thorne, retains perpetual, exclusive rights to Eastern Shore Development Oversight and Consultation Authority for any community organization seeking lake management responsibilities. It meant that legally, Brenda needed my permission to run her committee. But Section 15 was the nuke. Any organization assuming lake management duties shall compensate the developer family at fair market rates for consultation services. I drove straight to Sarah's office, and when she read it, she actually laughed out loud, a genuine, delighted sound. We did the math. For 3 years, Brenda and the Pine Ridge Estates Association had been managing the lake without my consent, meaning they owed me retroactive consultation fees of $500 a month, plus usage fees for the boat ramp, plus oversight penalties. The total came to nearly $29,000, but the money wasn't the point. The point was that I owned them. We crafted a strategy called Operation Reality Check. We wouldn't send a letter. We wouldn't sue them privately. We would wait for Brenda's big Saturday meeting, the one where she planned to publicly humiliate me and vote to sue me, and we would drop this anvil on her head in front of the entire community. I spent the last few days watching Brenda escalate, frantic, desperate, even sending a lawyer to my house with a lowball offer to relocate my dock. An offer I recorded on my phone where he admitted they just wanted me out of sight to boost property values. Saturday arrived with a crisp autumn bite in the air, the leaves turning the color of fire, mirroring the burning in my gut as I walked into the community center at 7 p.m. sharp. The room was packed, standing room only, buzzing with the nervous energy of a lynch mob. Brenda had done her job well, filling the seats with angry residents who believed I was ruining their investment. She stood at the front, flanked by easels holding blown-up photos of my property taken from misleading angles, looking like a prosecutor ready to send a man to the chair, her suit sharp, her face set in a mask of grim determination. "Good evening," she began, her voice echoing off the cheap acoustic tiles. "We are here to address a cancer in our community." And for 20 minutes, she dragged my name through the mud, accusing me of environmental terrorism, of threatening families, of lowering property values, whipping the crowd into a frenzy of nodding heads and angry murmurs. She concluded with a flourish. "I am recommending we petition the county for immediate seizure of the non-compliant structures and file a lawsuit for damages." And the room erupted in applause, until I stood up, briefcase in hand, and asked, "Mind if I respond to those allegations, Brenda?" The silence that fell over the room was heavy, suffocating. Brenda's smile flickered, nervous but arrogant. "Of course, Caleb, though the evidence speaks for itself." I walked to the front, not with anger, but with the calm of a man holding a royal flush, and I didn't shout. I just projected my voice to the back of the room. "Before we talk about lawsuits," I said, pulling out the 1962 contract, "maybe we should discuss who actually owns the rights to manage this lake." I read the clause. Developer retains perpetual exclusive rights. I watched the words land on the audience like physical blows. "What this means," I continued, looking directly at the board members who were shifting uncomfortably, "is that for 3 years, this HOA has been operating illegally on my water. You haven't asked for permission, and you certainly haven't paid the mandated consultation fees." I slapped Sarah's calculation sheet onto the projector. According to fair market rates and your own bylaws, the Pine Ridge Estates Association currently owes the Thorne family $28,800 in retroactive fees. Brenda shrieked, actually shrieked. That's a lie. That's extortion. But I cut her off by plugging my phone into the AV system. And regarding the threats? I played the video. The room watched in stunned silence as the screen showed Brenda trembling with rage on my dock, trespassing, screaming at me, her boat patrol creating dangerous wakes, her lawyer trying to bribe me. The narrative flipped in seconds. The monster they were told about was actually the victim, and their fearless leader was a tyrant exposing them to massive financial liability. I don't want to bankrupt this community, I told the room, watching the anger turn to shame in their eyes. I'm proposing a settlement. The HOA pays half the owed amount, $15,000, and signs a strict fair usage agreement acknowledging my rights. In exchange, I won't sue you for harassment, and I won't foreclose on your boat ramp. The applause that started in the back with Bob and Linda spread forward until the whole room, except for Brenda, was nodding in agreement. It wasn't a victory of force, it was a victory of truth. The aftermath was swift. Brenda resigned before the meeting even officially ended, fleeing the building and leaving her charts behind. She moved away 6 months later, her reputation in real estate shattered by the ethical violations exposed during the fallout. The new board, led by a sensible retired teacher, cut the check without argument. But I didn't keep the money. I used every cent to establish the Lake Whispering Pines Conservation Fund, upgrading the fish habitats and creating a scholarship for local kids studying environmental science, turning blood money into a legacy my grandfather would have been proud of. Now, the dock is a gathering place. The barriers are gone. Neighbors who used to cross the street to avoid me now come down for coffee on Sunday mornings to fish off the extension I built. But as I sit here, watching the sun bleed orange across the water that my family protected for 60 years, I'm left with a question that keeps me up sometimes. I won, yes. Justice was served. But is it right that it took a 60-year-old piece of paper to make people treat a neighbor with basic dignity? Should we need a contract to force us to be kind? Or is the sad truth of the world that people like Brenda only respect power, never people? I don't know. All I know is the fishing is good, and the water is finally quiet. If you've ever had a neighbor try to steal what's yours, or an HOA that forgot they don't own the sun and the moon, let me know in the comments. Fight for your peace, document everything, and never, ever forget to check the archives. You never know what ghosts are waiting to help you win the war.